Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 7276, the Desert Locust Control Act, which I introduced along with my good friend and colleague, Karen Bass. She is chairwoman, as you know, of the Africa Global Health Global Human Rights Committee. I'm the ranking member. In previous times, I was the chairman, she was my ranking member, and we have worked very closely together on all issues dealing with health and the well-being of people around the world through the global health portion of our portfolio, but also with a very particular emphasis on Africa. This bipartisan bill would create an interagency task force that would address the crisis of increasingly biblical proportions caused by swarms of desert locusts, which have been compounded by the COVID crisis, which our country and so many other nations are dealing with. Indeed, as serious as COVID has been, and it has been serious, as we all know, the unfortunate fact is that there are many other threats to the welfare and well-being of so many people in the developing world, including sub-Saharan Africa, where the likelihood of food insecurity looms larger thanks to the pandemic. Just how bad is it? Swarms of hundreds of millions of locusts darken the sky, descend upon an area, stripping it entirely of its vegetation. Crops are just decimated in a matter of minutes and hours. Unfortunately, due in part to this bad timing with a pandemic, we are witnessing the real possibility of famine in many countries of East Africa, where over 27 million people are now estimated to be suffering from acute food insecurity, which is defined as the sudden lack of food or the ability to produce or access minimum requirements of food. I should note that in the case of one of the nations most impacted, Ethiopia, the political situation has simultaneously deteriorated so that the country is now on the brink of civil war, with the added crisis of refugees fleeing conflicted areas added to the mix of cascading calamities and compounding crises. Indeed, the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, estimates that this infestation of locusts will persist until at least March 2021 in both Ethiopia and Somalia. Our bill would create an interagency working group comprised of representatives of the USAID, state, the NSC, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Ag to formulate a strategic plan to address this and future locust outbreaks, as well as other similarly destructive pests, such as full armyworm, which wreaks tremendous havoc on crops annually. The working group would also include representatives from our mission to the UN food agencies based in Rome, where our current ambassador, Kip Tom, is doing a stellar job interacting with both the WFP, World Food Program, and the Food and Agriculture Organization, as well as locust-impacted countries. Ambassador Kip Tom has briefed me and others repeatedly. We've talked about best practices on the phone, in Skype, phone calls, and again, I want to single him out for the tremendous job that he has done in trying to mitigate this crisis. The World Food Program has also been a tremendous help, as it has been in so many other places around the world, under the extraordinary leadership of David Beasley. Indeed, the international community has recognized the human work by awarding the World Food Program the Nobel Peace Prize. Ambassador Tom has been pushing the FAO in particular to proactively address the problem and adopt the better use technology. For example, use of apps on smartphones in Kenya, advocated by the ambassador, has led to roughly 80% of the data collected on the location of desert locusts, thereby allowing for the targeted mobilization of aerial assets for locust eradication and control. It is innovation such as this and the adoption of best practices which our interagency group will focus on identifying and implementing. Indeed, we also think that the working group will help ensure that our taxpayer dollars are expended in the most effective way possible, and the United States government has committed over $24 million through USAID, and that has made a difference as well. And while the focus of our bills are on East Africa and other countries, like Yemen, India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, are threatened by these spreading swarms as well. Indeed, Yemen has become a breeding ground for locusts, crossing over into the Horn of Africa, compounding the problem caused by indigenous swarms in the countries of the Horn. Again, I urge strong support for the bill, and again, I thank our distinguished chairman for his leadership on this and so many others. Yield back the balance of our time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from New York.
Once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Smith for his work on this legislation. Mr. Smith, through the years, has done great work on so many issues. I think he's the only one on the Foreign Affairs Committee that has actually been there longer than I have. And we've collaborated on many good projects, bipartisan projects, through the years. So I thank Mr. Smith for being such a good member on the committee. I'm pleased to support this legislation. It's very important. It's very important for our country. It's very important for the world. I urge all my colleagues to support it and yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 7276 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Without objection, the title is amended.